and right behind me, the newspapers, and that's exactly what we'll be starting with, just looking at what they detail this morning, the Daily Nation, the People Daily, as well as the Standard newspaper. Most of the times it's safer that way because then it informs most of the conversations that we intend to have, and so we do not run away from the same. And in studio, Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, MCA candidate, Waithaka Ward. We have two Achilles, I'd say, and forgive me, Kimberly, for starting with the man. I should have started with the lady. Yes, Kimberly Muraya, advocate. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us after a very long time. You've been well?
Yes.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. We have so much that is happening in terms of politics. What happened to Team Wanyonyi?
Team Wanyonyi, well, politics, there's ups and downs of politics.
Yeah.
And I guess Team Wanyonyi experienced the downs of it in terms of his gubernatorial aspirations. Yeah. But he's pretty strong in the Westlands MP race. So we expect to have a very strong and easy comeback for him in the Westlands MP seat. Yeah.
What makes you think he will succeed on this one? I mean, Harvey comes in, Harvey is not a pushover, and a couple of other people that have joined in that are pretty much strong, and therefore one is a bit skeptical as to whether then it will be a plus for Team.
Yes, there are, the strength of Harvey and the rest is not disputed. However, based on the track record for Team Wanyonyi, we are extremely confident that he will definitely get the seat.
All right. Ben, thank you for creating time. Waithaka is in Nairobi. Dagoreti, eh?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Yes.
So it's good to have you. Before we talk about Waithaka, let's talk Nairobi and what is happening today and all that played out. You know, the last time I had Kimberly here, that's the reason why I'm asking her what happened to him. She really was a staunch believer and supporter of his gubernatorial bid. And, you know, they put up so much work to position Team, but then again, whatever happened, happened, and such is politics. But then again, Igathe, Johnston Sakaja. I mean, these ones are the two most, popular contenders for this particular position. Chances are very high that it will be Igathe or Sakaja. Do you want to be in a ward that is manned by either of the two?
Very good morning to every viewer. Very good morning to you, Linda. I'm happy to be here. And I think the first thing is I stand also a very good chance at the Waithaka Ward seat. We say everybody stands a mathematical chance of winning their seat. And I pray and believe and hope and trust in God that God will be faithful enough to give us Igathe as the next governor for Nairobi. And I say that without blinking, without even thinking twice.
Igathe has been there, decided to ghost us, surely speaking.
I would like to say this.
Yeah.
Yesterday he made a very interesting quote and said, I have been in this country and I have never earned a shilling for doing nothing. When he was at the Nairobi County, he was made to earn a salary for what he said was doing nothing. No duties allocated to him, no responsibilities allocated to him, and things were going wrong. Igathe has never been in a company or corporation that was associated with corruption. He found equity when it had a book of 500 billion. He left it at 1.2 trillion. So you're telling this person to come to a county, well, Equity is running bigger books than the county of Nairobi, for your information. So you're telling him to come to a county and have a leader like Sonko over his head, making all the wrong decisions. And today, it would have been very hard for him to run because he would be associated with all the failures of Nairobi County. But when he left, it was clear that this is Sonko's mess. He did it on his own. In fact, it's good he didn't even have a deputy for a very long time because then he carries the whole burden of the entire mess that he made for himself.
But does it not disturb you that, many say that he is a project, say, of the state, like they have said for Baba, and that when he comes on board, it will not be him who's running the show, but other people behind? You
see, people can say anything. And people will say anything to try and discredit a good person. And I can tell you for free, even if you refuse to take Igathe, if World Bank or the United Nations had a chance, they'll take him and leave every other of those candidates.
But imagine this. People are saying that, but from the blues.
Sometimes it's good to ignore what some Kenyans say. Because if the United Nations was here and they were looking for someone to hire and they were given Sakaja and Igathe, who do you think they would pick?
And he would have been a better bet than Tim Wanyonyi or any other.
If UNCTAD was here and they were given
the
the two candidates, who would they pick? Okay. If the US was here and they were told they must pick a cabinet secretary from the two of them, whom do you think they would pick? It's obvious it would be Igathe. So Kenyans, let us not be emotional about politics. Let us be rational about politics. Politics is about interest.
Okay.
Sakaja first and foremost.
Sakaja has done so well at the level of the Senate.
Who said he has? We people from Mount Kenya, we people from Mount Kenya are extremely and completely and totally unhappy with Sakaja.
But why?
I'll tell you this. In 2017, the people of Mount Kenya in Nairobi voted for Sakaja to the man.
Yes.
And when President Uhuru Kenyatta tried bringing one man, one shilling, one vote, that was before BBI. That Sakaja Kenyan rejected one man, one shilling, one vote 11 times.
Okay.
I'll tell you why one man, one shilling, one vote was important for us.
Oh, this is the BBI
if you
conversation.
No, before BBI.
Before BBI,
there was 11 votes in Parliament for one man, one shilling, one vote. Look at Honorable Masiga Kuya, the MP for Isambu, representing 250,000 people, sitting at a table with Duale, representing 15,000 people, and each of them getting an equal CDF allocation and an equal bursary allocation. So that Duale pays bursaries to the tune of 50,000 per child, whereas Masiga Kuya, the best she can do is 3,000 shillings. In all honesty, I think for every one vote that Duale casts, Masiga Kuya here should cast 15 votes. We are underrepresented in Central Province. Now, it's unfortunate that some of our own MPs, including my own, who is from Dagoretti, which is by and large more of a Kikuyu place than it is for other places. And these people voted against one man, one shilling, one vote, led by that Sakaja.
Hold it right there, Kimberly. And that's the biggest problem. Because we are hoping that as a country we will shift the conversation from a region to what will benefit the rest of the country. And that is the reason why Gloria would sit here with you, we were just talking about Gloria, and try and tell you that, you know what, the rest of the Kenyans are being duped. Duped in the sense that, you know, this one man, one shilling, one vote, this conversation of the BBI is hugely about benefiting Central. When President Uhuru Kenyatta sat with the members of County Assembly, he told them, you miss this one, your loss. Members of County Assembly of Central Region, so to speak. And so one would be tempted to ask, why should the conversation be about benefiting Central, and not the entire country?
The conversation right now is not about benefiting Central, because at the end of the day, the beneficiaries of this one shilling, one vote is not just the Central Province, or rather the Central Region. And
why they say so is because there's this region, and exactly what it is that Ben has said. You find that a majority of people that are in the other regions in the country, different regions, are Central people, are largely, you know, people from the mountain. And therefore, while they'll benefit from home as well, in these other different regions and counties, they will stand to benefit. And if you'd listen to what Ben is saying, you'd realize hugely, you know, he even clearly tells us that it's about the people of Central, and we, the people of Central, are mad at Sakaja. And there's nothing wrong with vouching for your region to probably get to benefit. But don't you think it's a little bit extreme when we have the rest of the country that as well is struggling?
You see, it's not, I don't discount the fact that Central Kenya will benefit largely on the one man, one shilling, one vote. However, it cuts across, because at the end of the day, what was the very basis of the perspective of the one man, one shilling, one vote? The whole basis was that the overpopulated regions would get more funding as compared to the underpopulated regions. Because right now, if you see how funding is done in some regions, people are getting bursaries of hundreds of thousands in some regions, as opposed to other populated regions, not just Central Kenya, other populated regions in Kenya, where bursaries are only, say, 3,000 shillings, as opposed to other regions where there's 300, 100,000 shillings in bursaries. This is the funds, the perspective here, or rather the basis here, was that we have an equitable distribution of funds. Equitable in terms of, if your region holds a lot of people, then you get more funding than the places that are not largely populated. And I feel like if you see it in that perspective, it will make a lot more sense, and actually it will discount the fact that it's just the central province or the central region that is going to benefit from this, because other places like Kakamega, other counties in Western, in Nyanza, they are very largely populated and also are in deep need of funds.
They've been ahead. And I mean, I know you'd want to respond to that, but let's face it, for the longest of time since independence, they have said, and maybe statistically proven, that the central Kenya has been a step ahead in comparison to all these other regions that have been there in terms of benefiting. And I know you're looking down because there's some essence of truth in that, but in your best way, I know you will counter the same. When you're looking at this and we are thinking about, let's get to raise every other region. Let's talk about Lamu people that always feel like they're largely, marginalized, and we get to see how best can we do this. One, is it a problem with the leadership that they have had, or it's just that the people of Central Kenya are better negotiators?
I'll tell you this, Linda, and I think this needs to be very clear. 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote was not about taking away from those who already have to give to the people of Central Province. It was about thinking of a constituency like Juja that has 400,000 people. 1 MP, 400,000 people. Yeah. And then we have a governor somewhere who is elected by 30,000 people. And that governor is controlling billions, and this MP is controlling just 100 million. So when they go to vote in parliament, this one person who is representing 400,000 people has 1 vote. And the person representing 30,000 people, in fact, that county has 5 constituencies, and they each have a vote. So you have 30,000 people having 5 votes, and you have 400,000 people having 1 vote in parliament. It is grossly, totally, and completely unfair. Okay. If we are not going to increase the number of constituencies, then let us increase the power of the vote, so that when Masiga Kuya votes, her vote is worth 15 of Duale's votes. And the problem we have is that some of Central Kenya MPs went and sat at a table with somebody like Oscar Sudi, who is elected by less than 30,000 people. And Oscar Sudi is telling them, vote against 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. And he's telling a central MP who was elected by 100,000 people that it is wrong for you to give bursaries like him, who is giving 25,000. You go and give your people 5,000. Let us vote against 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. At Senate, we, the people of Central Province who live in Nairobi, really voted for Sakaja. And we believed in him, and we wanted him to become our senator. For him to go and fight, Linda, wacha nikwambie. There's one thing like being unfair, but there's another one which Sakaja did to us, having an opportunity to give the people who voted for you what is rightfully theirs. We are not asking for more. Na munasema Central ati we are better off, we are nini, but I'll tell you, we are many.
The population is high. I mean, we have seen the registration list that speaks volumes about the high population of Central.
And not even that. Linda, go to the oddest of places. Even if you go to the city mortuary now, sorry to use that example, and you decide to count the number of dead bodies, there are more Kikuyus there than any other person. So we are not asking for anything more than what we deserve. We're just saying that we are paying, because of our numbers, we are paying a higher amount of tax. We are carrying a huge burden, but our people, right now hatuwezi somesha watoto. Hapa Dagoretti mtoto akipata fees, jamani, 5,000 bursary per year. What will that do for you? Compare that with another child in another, what you are calling less developed area, who is getting 50, 60,000.
But now that's the irony. Why is it that they're getting more, yet you can't even say that these areas are developing? You can't say much about the question of education in terms of, the students that are there. Why is it these discrepancies? Is that something that we're not being told?
Yes. It is simple. That we will vote out Sakaja because he refused to give us what is right.
When you say we, you mean who? The people of Central.
We are campaigning against him completely. Right. And you know me, I'm never afraid to say the truth. Because we had a chance, we gave him an opportunity to vote for 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, so that our children, where I come from in Waithaka, kila siku mimi nagongewa gate, mtoto amefukuzwa na fees. Sometimes I wake up, I have nothing. Mpaka unafuliza tu mtoto wenyewe mwenye hujui ni wa nani akasome. Knowing very well that there was an opportunity for us to get a slightly higher allocation in terms of bursaries for the children in our areas. And Sakaja was one of the people who stood against
And
him.
you know, this is one thing that would want to focus on, open up Pandora's box and pack the numbers, just get to see whether that was possible, whether it would have given us, you know, any much of a difference. But Kimberly, they said that, you know, Wanyonyi would have been a better deal in comparison to Polycarp Igathe. And they said that, well, getting Polycarp there is like giving Sakaja a straight win. The battles that Sakaja has faced, at some point in time, he feels like, you know, this were targeted. This was more of political witch hunt. But that aside, and here he is, in the event that he goes all the way to the ballot, what would you make of, you know, his run based on his performance in Parliament, based on the aspect of age, based on the knowledge and understanding of his constituents, that is, of course, Nairobi County, and all that? Do you suppose that he then would not be a good deal, you know, in comparison to Polycarp, as Ben would argue?
Okay, before Sakaja's scandals, it was reasonable to think that because Wanyonyi was out of the game, you'd be giving Sakaja a, you know, freeway or a free pass to the gubernatorial position. However, let's not discount the fact that the scandals have really affected his race. The scandals in terms of, you know, his credibility.
You think it does? I mean, the other day there was a poll that was out here and he was taking a lead. Don't you think that this, in a huge way, has given him more popularity, has garnered sympathy votes for him, and that then all scandals have been a plus?
You see, polls, the beauty about polls is that polls are, you can manipulate polls.
Yeah.
Polls are not really conclusive as such. What is on the ground right now is that, number one, people feel, okay, one thing we need to realize about Sakaja is that he spoke to the youth a lot. And he really related to the youth, and his gubernatorial race depended largely on the youth vote because people related with him. However, here's a guy who brands, or rather he packages himself as this, and you find out it has all been a lie.
Right.
A lot of the youth are feeling number one, betrayed. Most of us have gone to university. Most of us have gone through the challenges of getting that degree. Most of us are jobless, even getting the degree. But here you get Sakaja, yeah? You get Sakaja who's apparently gone through some, you know, so to speak, a shortcut.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel, number one, betrayed. A lot of the youth feel like he should have gone through the normal protocols like the rest of us. Because what makes him special? What makes him more special than us who sat our classes, failed our cuts, redid our cuts, and got our degrees? What makes him more special?
But would we say then that he went through these shortcuts because he's really tried to prove his case, and as a legal mind, then you understand by the virtue of being cleared, then it means somehow he has managed to convince...
A thing with politics, and this I learned largely by working with the team, Wanyonyi team, is that perception matters.
Yeah.
It matters a whole lot. The way the people and the public perceive you really matters. So if the perception, in as much as yes, you're cleared, as long as the public perceives that there was a shortcut you did, or there was a discrepancy in your paperwork, like why is it that the rest, everyone else, has a set way? I mean, has their records
Standard, yes,
their records are clean. Why is it that you are the only one who has to prove your case?
You see, the irony of politics, Ben, is that yes, that could work in favor of Sakaja, could as well work, you know, against him. And I mean, we even want to remind ourselves of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy during the ICC moments, is when the country picked to run the country. You know, the perception was that these people are terrible people. These are not the people that you want to run the country. These are not the people that will appeal to the international standards, which is very important. And you have said that if they come here, they'd probably opt for Polycarp as opposed to somebody else. And so if we can look at the question of perception, don't you think it is a plus for Sakaja, or it could be a plus for Sakaja? And I mean, we have heard about sympathy votes. We have heard about where, you know, people feel like, yeah, actually he's being targeted, and courtesy of that, we're going to punish the targeter and make sure that he ascends to power.
You see, I have always said that we have a big challenge in Nairobi. And the challenge we have in Nairobi is that we are not looking for leadership. We are looking for people who appeal to our emotions. And this is where we are failing as a country. And that's how Sonko ended up becoming the governor of Nairobi. The second biggest economy in Africa, or third or something. We cannot even begin to understand how someone would put Igathe and Sakaja on the same scale, because it is wrong from every front. It is completely and totally wrong from every front to put Sakaja and Igathe on the same, because they don't belong to the same weighing scale. When you have a bachelor, you have a university degree, you do not need to guess whether it was from the University of Nairobi or from Teams or from wherever, because you know where it was from. When you talk of graduation, it's such a big ceremony that every other person in your life at that point in time almost got involved. She can tell you when she graduated. I can tell you when I graduated. I even remember the date. And I remember almost every other person who celebrated with me. When you find yourself struggling to look for a graduation photo,
it is common.
When you find yourself deciding that all of a sudden there is a university that all of us Kenyans did not know in Uganda called Teams, and that you studied online, and that there is nothing online to show that you even submitted some assignment online. You know, hata afadhali angesema ilikuwa manual. Online, all your submissions were online. I mean, everything else you did was online. There should be at least an assignment. A fee payment, once you pay, we would take photos. I'm currently doing my master's at the University of Nairobi. It's half online, because the other half we have to do exams physically, and there are things we need to do at the university. And every time I pay my fee, it's online. In fact, it's such a nice thing that you pay to the bank, you send the codes to the university, you get a receipt, and so on and so forth. My submissions, the paperwork we are doing right now, we are submitting online. So Sakaja should forget about lying to Kenyans that he has a university degree. And the audacity to stand in a church on Sunday and actually tell Kenyans, mimi nimesoma nimemaliza on a church podium in front of Christians on a Sunday. Such kind of guts is what we do not, because if you can lie.
Cleared, what does it speak about us as a people?
Clearing this. Now let's come to the clearing bit. You see, right now we have somebody who is a convict, total convict, John Weluke, and he's been cleared by IEBC to vie. So it tells you our institutions have a problem, because there was thing about suspicions, but when a convicted person is actually cleared by IEBC to vie, it tells you something is wrong with our institutions. That's all I can say. The fact that Sakaja has been cleared, there's something wrong with our institutions.
So why should we trust the fact that we're going to have a free and fair process? Why should we trust the fact that we're going to have a good crop of leadership, even when the reports are out here that we risk getting about 40% of the leadership that has integral issues? Then what are we doing as a nation? Are we landing ourselves into trouble, and we are comfortable about that, and we're not about to do anything to change this?
There is trouble ahead, because very early on in the process, in the electoral process, we're already facing all these scandals in terms of the very basics as to who is eligible to vie and who's not. So it would be laughable for us to think that August 9th, the August 9th elections are going to be free, fair, and credible. They are not. Already, like my friend Ben said, we have convicts vying. We have people who have been accused of grossly mismanaging funds vying. The same people that the IEBC had once said that they would not be allowed to vie. But most of these people are getting cleared through either the court process or fictitious, weird, frivolous processes where you hear one person is being told, okay, you can't vote today, and then the next, a couple of days later, he's cleared of all irregularities. So the very basic, in terms of the people who even are vying at the very instance, all of them are. It's not credible already. Very early on in the electoral process, we have all these scandals. So it wouldn't be realistic to say that come August 9th, we would have a credible election.
Then why should I bother to wake up very early in the morning, go and cast my vote? Ben, we have seen the register out, and we still are, unpacking it. We're still looking into the numbers. A majority of people will tell you they are disappointed that youth really did not show the interest of going out there to register as voters, while very many people were trying to campaign appealing to the youth. Does it clearly give us a reason as to why then we see this youth not interested at all? Because they know after all said and done, it is the system that is going to decide who's going to be president. It is, these individuals that have really been the same monkeys that we're still going to get on board. There's really not much, of change that is promised to us.
I'll tell you why you should wake up and vote. When I was trying to get cleared at IBC, at the social hall at Dagoretti, it's called Maisha Power Center. We spent a whole hour, I repeat, a whole hour, IBC trying to explain to MCA aspirants how to fill in a form on how to apply to be cleared as an MCA card. It was in English, and some people could raise their hands and say, date tunaandika aje. Hapa ni jina yangu. Now those crop of leaders are on the same ballot with advocates, with doctors, with lawyers, with engineers for MCA positions. Why you should wake up and vote is so that someone who cannot read a basic form to fill in at the IEBC register and is on the ballot, you kick them out. Why you should wake up to vote is because if the United Nations came here and found Sakaja and Igathe, they would pick Igathe. You're a brilliant person. Wake up because Igathe is on that ballot. Wake up and choose a good leader. And this is why Fanya Mambo is offering himself. I've been told many times, wewe ni wakili, kwani unataka kiti ya MCA? And I'm telling them, at the county assembly, we are discussing the lives of Nairobians. We are discussing environment. We are discussing health, which is a devolved function. We are discussing basic education, which is a devolved function. We are discussing the future of our children. We are discussing where the drainage will pass through, urban planning, and so many other things. For sure, we need brains. We need brains at the county assembly. And that's why every other person must wake up today and say, if someone cannot read Taifa Leo, if someone cannot read the Daily Nation, if someone cannot read a basic newspaper, they do not deserve to be on the county assembly.
What about those ones that not wished to read, but because of the vulnerabilities in their lives, they were not able to do this?
I'll tell you why they should not be in the county assembly.
We take a short break and then we come back on that.
Just a second. This is legislation.
Right.
A bill is a bill is a bill. It comes in a legal language. You have sent someone there who cannot read the Daily Nation to go and prepare a bill at the county assembly. You've sent someone who cannot speak and read English to go there and read things that are written in English on urban planning. How do you do urban planning if you cannot read? Unfortunately, you are not suited for the job. So do we start saying that every other person who is not qualified can become a surgeon because it's an opportunity? And uchinje watu kama mbuzi? No, you have to go through medicine school. You have to be prepared to start operating on people. And we cannot allow you to just come and say, I want an opportunity to be a doctor. It's the same thing. I want an opportunity to become a leader. If you cannot read a bill and you're going there to make bills, it's like going to a theater to operate people and you have no idea about medicine.
Well put. We take a short break and then we come back with more.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why nilieka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring whether you're supposed to raise some seeds in the nursery or you're supposed to do them directly in the field.
The greenhouse helps us control the temperature because the temperature needs to be between 28 to 32 degrees.
Walk this journey with us every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. It's no secret, construction ain't cheap. But how do we make it affordable? Different individuals are finding ways of cutting down cost by use of pre-stressed slabs other than reinforced concrete, recycling plastics to make pavers.
The brick is stronger, it's cheaper, and it's lighter.
And recycling wastewater in your household.
What happens to my waste from the washroom, the solid waste?
Beautiful thing to see the young turks, taking charge, understanding the political scene, as well as just making it clear that they are ready and ripe for leadership. And so, Ben, why do you suppose we really did not have the young ones? And perhaps maybe I start with Kimberly. Kimberly, what really could have informed this essence of apathy from the young turks? The previous election, they held the largest of numbers, and we all expected that this would go up, in as much as there are some of them who passed on and there are some adjustments that were done in the register. We would have expected that the number goes up, but you realize that 35 and above is what is making the largest chunk of the voters register. Does it speak volumes about the future of the nation?
It does speak volumes about our future, especially our future as the youth. Number one, the one thing that bars youth from coming into leadership, and I'm sure Ben will agree, is the fact that there's a perception that if you want to be a leader, you have to have X amount of money backing your race up. I mean, it's okay. It's reasonable to think that, you need money to vie, right? You need money to do all these things. However, the fact that our youth, primarily our youth, depend on handouts and want handouts and will not vote unless they're given handouts. What I usually call it is the hustler mentality, the mentality where unless you give me this, unless you buy me unga, I will not vote for you. Now, realistically speaking, most of the youth right now are people who've come from university and are starting off in the workforce. They don't have they are not liquid enough to back this habit, right? And most of them, they lack the funds to move their youth, the fellow youth, to vote. Now, if we did away with this mentality, if we did away with the mentality that unless you give me X amount of money, unless you give me X amount of money, I will vote for you. If we did away with that, I'm sure a lot of youth would come up and vie for these positions. I'm sure most of the youth would have the confidence to actually speak. And one thing I would ask the youth out there is that we need to come together and support our own. The same way we're supporting Sakaja, or rather the same way Sakaja is being supported by a lot of the youth, the same way a lot of youthful aspirants were being supported, people like KJ were being supported by the youth. That's how we ought to support each and every person.
But just how much have they done well at the level of Parliament, Senate, for us to again say, you know what, really this is promising? I mean, you've heard about women and questions have lingered as to the position of women representatives. I remember I sat with Sabina Chege and she was complaining that, well, you know, the same amount of money that we're being given is the same amount of money that a member of parliament is being given. Theirs is to handle our constituencies. Ours is to handle a whole county. Linda, how can you balance this? But you know, this is not out there in the public domain. And therefore, there's a general feel that that position of the woman representative wasn't important, that maybe it should be scrapped off in this bit of 2/3 gender rule. And so while we would want to celebrate those ones that have found themselves there, the 12th parliament holding the highest number of youths in comparison to the previous parliaments, as well the highest number of women. And therefore, if we get these vulnerables of society, support them like we ought to. If you look at those ones that have been there, are we confident that it will be worth a deal, it will be worth, you know, a push?
Okay, first and foremost, who is heading IBC?
Wafula
IBC
Chebukati
is running on the wheels of, if not 18th, maybe 17th century ideas. We have a generation of young people who do everything, virtually everything, on their telephone. They market their stuff online, they sell online, they are on TikTok, they are on Insta, they are on all sorts of places online. Most young people today don't go to town if they need a pair of jeans. They go to their phone, they look at who is selling the pair of jeans, they ask, can you deliver? I mean, can I pay upon delivery? They check, if they like, they pay. They don't go to the shops. They are wondering why they would have to queue from 5 in the morning to 4 p.m. to vote. Because IEBC is run by people who think that the ballot must be a physical paper, that people must queue to vote, and that votes must be counted in a box like this by people in classrooms and in schools. Honestly, we are all doing M-Pesa. And I've not had anybody complaining that they left 5,000 shillings in their phone and found 1,000 shillings. If we can trust this phone to handle lots of money, I mean, the amount of billions right now in people's phones is a lot of money. Why are we not able to run a safe, secure, and trustworthy election process on the phone?
Because you understand very well that the internet, you know, is a problem to us. And I mean, is it what Chebukati is trying to do?
Not a problem.
Ben, Chebukati says that the register will be purely digital. Then the presidential contenders are telling him no. The civil society is telling him no. It cannot be purely digital. We have to have physical registers. We have to have printed registers. I mean, don't you think we're pointing fingers so much so to him?
And that is why these young people are not interested in that process. Because for them, it is old, it is archaic, it is not worth. We should be at a place where right now we are able to vote on our phones securely. I mean, I can book a train from this phone. I can book a flight from this phone. And there will be no double booking. Why will there be double registration of voters? Why will there be double voting? Germany held an election early this year. We never even got to notice. And their ballot paper was so cheap. It was about 10 Kenya shillings. It was a plain white paper with no security features. But they knew no German will go and tick more than one paper and photocopy others so that they can vote, so that one MCA in a ward with 5,000 people will have 18,000 votes. But
there's some people who actually vote months before the election, and they sit and they know that their vote is safe.
Now try having a paper with no security features in Kenya. Fanya Mambo, I think my supporters would photocopy those papers overnight. And every other person, so that in Waithaka alone we would have 1 million votes having been cast for the MCA divided among
contrary to the register itself.
Yes. So it is us, the people, who are the problem. We need to change our software so that we become people who are trusted. Like in Germany, you can vote a month before the election, and it will be one vote, and it will be trusted, and you yourself are so trustworthy that you willing to vote twice, even given a chance to vote twice for one person.
Right.
But look at Kenyans. Even in a nomination process, people vote 15 times. So that is where the problem is. That's why many of our young people are not interested in this process, because it doesn't fit within what they think should be a 2022 kind of election. We are running a 2022 election with the ideas of 1971.
Okay, let's talk about IEBC. And yes, it is under siege to meet 4 presidential candidates. And the dilemma is that IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati is a man between a rock and a hard place. His decision to do away with physical voter register on polling day has come back to haunt him. And yes, after frontrunners Raila Odinga and William Ruto alongside the civil society ganged up in protest, will he wither the raging storm? And it's a storm for Chebukati. Are we being a little bit radical on the electoral body, or perhaps they have left lots of loopholes that, you know, get them to a point where we lack trust?
With Chebukati and IBC and 100% digitalizing elections, I feel like he's living in a very utopian paradise. It's not possible to go 100% technological based on the past experience with the KIMS kits. You see, the first thing is whatever Chebukati, the directive Chebukati has made goes against NASA versus IEBC case in 2017, where it was ruled that there has to be a complementary mechanism that is there has to be a manual registration and a manual transmission of results. So that's the first. The
fears are that again with the manual, it's pretty much easy to interfere with the process.
If you see, you cannot purely digitize because of certain challenges that come with digitization. You have to, it has to work concurrently. You can digitize, yes, but 100% to the point that you don't have manual registers, that one is a bit utopian. It's a bit unrealistic because of challenges like other rural areas where there's no electricity or there are electrical, there's challenges with electricity, challenges with network. Right now, we all know that to operate the KIMS kits, you have to have 3G, 4G, 5G network. So unless the Communications Authority can assure us that there's going to be enough network everywhere from site, because you see, an election process, it's nationwide. That you have to assure us that across the entire nation there's going to be strong enough network that there won't be any glitches. Number 2, digitization, as we know in this day and age, is prone to failures and prone to hacking and interference. So all these challenges that come about, it makes it a bit unrealistic to say that we are going to just digitize. Don't forget that most of our, some of the people, some of the voters have distorted fingerprints. So during the biometric processes where you need to verify your credentials via your fingerprint, anyone who has a distorted fingerprint for one reason or another will not be able to vote. And it's the right to vote, it's the constitutional right to vote despite the fact that you have a distorted fingerprint. So you have to have that complementary backup to make sure that during these glitches, there's a backup that you can fall on. Yes.
All right.
Linda, you know, Wakili here is not a politician, and she doesn't understand.
Wakili is a Kenyan.
Yes, she doesn't understand she doesn't understand where Chebukati is coming from. Chebukati is coming from a position whereby, if you know, the reason we had some voter stations having more than 100% turnout, it was simple. It was because when you come in, I'll look at you, and because you have a mark of some sort, some people had a white ribbon, others had, there were so many marks to mark. When you come in, I know you are coming in for so and so. So I'll pretend to look for Linda Alela and cross the line and give you your ID, and you move to the next person who will then give you the ballot, and you go. And and there were 2 marker pens, one permanent and one that was not permanent. And they would mark you because they know you with the one that is not permanent. And the minute you leave the station, you would go and rub it off.
And come back.
So if there are 4 polling stations in that area, you can move, you know there are 7 classes.
Right.
You can literally go to the queue in the next class, and this guy will look at this and pretend to cross a line somewhere and give you your papers and you vote. One person would vote 15 times. That's why we had some polling stations with more than 100% turnout. Okay. Some as crazy as 99%, where others had 60% turnout. Don't talk about electricity. I'll tell you one thing. This is an interesting country where it is hard to get exam papers to places like Turkana and Lodwar. But ballot papers get there 3 days before the elections.
Yeah.
Ballot papers always get there somehow. And the results from those polling stations always come out. What does it tell you? It's about interest. When politicians are interested, if Chebukati forces this thing to go through that way, I assure you there will be electricity in every classroom in the most remote part of this country because politicians are interested in the presidential ballot, in the governor, in the senator, in the MCA, in the MP ballot that is coming from that station. So one of the fastest ways to make sure that we have electricity in every part of this country, because schools are spread out through this country, is to insist on, in fact, everything should be so electronic. And I can tell you, this nation will close down everything. Within a month, we will make sure there's electricity everywhere. Because mimi sijaisikia kuna polling station Kenya ambayo haikupiga kura kwa sababu hazikufika. Land Rovers za police, they get stuck, they use helicopters. Those guys can even send robots there to make sure that the ballot papers get there.
Right.
But when you talk of relief food, unasikia lori hazifiki, kumekwama, and Kenyans will die of hunger. But you will never die. If there was a disease called, if you don't vote, you will die. You will never die of that disease because the ballot will get there, I assure you, 24 hours before when you can die. 24 hours before the election. But if there's a disease called hunger, wanakufanga kama kitu ingine. Even their cows and everything dies because that is not important to the politician.
To the politician.
So let us insist on Chebukati's way, and I assure you we shall have electricity in Kenya. Itawekwa day and night. Itawekwa kila mahali.
Well, we hope that could happen anyway. But then he's
Itawekwa.
meeting the presidential candidate. Let's see whether they'll be able to coerce him to do what they term it right. But, you know, even in the involvement of the civil society and the involvement of other quarters, you know, in the processes of election. And there are instances where they have come in helpful. There are instances where there's been a general feeling like, you know, they interfere, and especially elections in Africa. And you will always find that the civil society is always in court. And the last election that we had, there were numerous cases that were presented to court, courtesy of the civil society. Do you suppose they come in genuine, you know, for the interest of the common mwananchi, or theirs is beyond that? And I mean, when we're talking about regime change, you know, how countries have gone down, the civil society has been at the heart of all this.
I think the civil society is key in bringing about the interest of the common mwananchi. I think had we not had the civil society and various activists, we wouldn't be having a watchdog, especially in an era like this where there's no opposition. We need to understand that right now we are in a very unique place in time where we do not have an opposition leader who can come out and point out a few things that the government is doing that are wrong. So the only people we have right now are the civil society who will now come out and speak for the common mwananchi, because unless we have another election where we'll have, you know, both sides, the current government and an opposition, the civil society is all we got right now. Yeah.
And how then do you say that they come in handy to address this, Ben, if they're going contrary to what would be your suggestion, in the sense that they say we have to have a physical voter register on a site? And I'm sure, you know, the civil society, and I mean these entities that have gone ahead to probably present this case to court, or in court, you know, blaming the IBC and saying that IBC should be called to order. They're pretty much going against what you think is right. And so can we confidently say that they have the interests of the people at heart?
Can I tell you how the civil society works? Yesterday, I was driving on Mombasa Road, and I could see brand new trailers, about 4, 5 or 6, from a very big NGO, I'm not going to mention their name, that does a lot of relief food. And some of them were semi-trailers, so it's a big lorry towing another. So they were like semi-trailers, about 32 wheels or 24 wheels. So each of those is about 30 million. And there were about 6 of them when I counted, following each other, brand new, brought by an NGO that helps people with relief food. It costs 3 million shillings at most to sink a borehole, and very little money to train people on how to plant maize and rice and beans.
Okay.
But these people will prefer to buy 6 trucks, each worth 30 million. That's about close to 200 million. So that these trucks can be used to always deliver relief food to those places. That's how the civil society works. We are at a situation right now where people who do not meet the credentials of becoming leaders are offering themselves for leadership. And those people are going to go all the way to the ballot. And the civil society has done nothing about it. We are in a situation where Kenyans make bad decisions, not because they want, but sometimes because they are incapacitated, they are not able to think wisely. Wanadanganywa. To some extent, very many Kenyans are very gullible. And try this, try politics. Sometimes you come and talk to people and you see how fast they change their mind. You're like, haya, nilikuwa nafikiria ground iko tofauti, wanakwambia ground will change, ground will change.
Yeah.
That tells you one thing, that our people have become very gullible. So if our civil society was a good civil society, they would have spent the bulk of the millions that they spend in court cases on trying to bring the level of understanding of our people, on civic education, on training, on, what you would call, have meetings, talk to people in town hall meetings,
right.
Tell them about good governance, about leadership, about what. But these people are like that NGO offering relief food.
Yeah.
They would rather spend 30 million buying 1 truck than 3 million sinking a borehole that would help that community for life. And that is how civil society is.
Okay.
So that every other year they have a proposal they can write to a donor, and the donor can give them funding, and then they can appear in the newspapers, they can appear in court and pay for spaces in the media to be seen, to be there. They can buy double cabins. Most of them have very beautiful cars. They have nice Prados. Have you ever seen civil society organizations in an old tuk-tuk? They don't use them. They use very nice cars. So why would I buy a Prado for 6 million and then brand it the name of a very beautiful civil society? How many town hall meetings can 6 million hold to educate people on importance of democracy and leadership and governance and all that? So we have a problem, and the biggest problem we have is that civil society.
Okay.
Because if you first fix the way they think, the way they do things, and the way they carry out their business, Kenya will be a better country.
Well, they have interests, and therefore, as well, their interests they have to protect by all means. Kimberly, as we almost come to a close, we have 4 presidential contenders. And I'd love for you to speak for the youth, speak for the women, and speak for the people of Kenya. They come to us, they present numerous, components in their very own manifestos. We are yet to see the manifestos of these other candidates being presented to the people for scrutiny, but we almost can guess what will be the Kenya Kwanza one. We almost can guess what Wajakoya will have. We almost can guess what David Mwaure will have. We already know what the Right Honorable Raila Odinga under the Azimio One Kenya Alliance is presenting to the people. What would you make of it? And because some of these stories have been captured in the papers, especially in their campaign trails, they focus on issues one by one. For instance, Deputy President William Ruto yesterday was hugely speaking about the question of education. At some point in time, early in his campaigns, he had said that he's going to scrap it off. He takes a U-turn on this one. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga speaks to different communities and says that, this is what we're going to bring. He says he's going to offer jobs to those ones that are weak in Azimio and the aspirants and all that. What do you make of this? What do we need to know? What do we need to take as we walk to the ballot on the August of 9?
I think as the youth and as women and any other minority group out there, we need to understand that we will always have this recycled old ambitions, or rather old goals that all these people will be selling. Their point of selling will always be the same thing: infrastructure, education, access to water, like Raila Odinga yesterday promised a certain community water. In this day and age, we are being promised water. There's livestock insurance that was promised yesterday. And basically, all this are the same exact things we probably had in 2017 and we'll probably hear in the next election. So let's be very prepared for that. Let's be prepared for the same exact things being promised to us. What we need to now do as the youth is have that contingency plan. Have the plan that if I vote for this person, I'm going to hold him accountable. Let's do the exact same thing we did with someone like Sonko. When Sonko did not perform, we impeached him and he went home. And right now, he's having a very tough time making a comeback. Let's do the exact same thing. If someone does not perform, send him home. Let's not listen to handouts. Let's not think about with our stomach. Let's think about who deserves this position, who is credible, who has who's ticked all our boxes in terms of what we want as a community or as a region or as a group. That person should be voted in and held accountable. Let us not allow these people to promise us something and get the position, relax for 2, 3, 4 years. Then on the 5th year, they come back again with the same exact stories. Let's not. This time, let's hold people accountable.
Yes, and this will say up to the very last day of the vote. I hope that we get to listen to this important council. And you, as we speak to the people of Waithaka, briefly, most importantly, I'd love for you to tell us about the Wajakoya effect. Are we losing it as a country? Are we on track?
First and foremost, things have been very difficult. Unajua bei ya unga imepanda.
Sana.
So Wajakoya has given us a very good comic relief. I mean, everybody is writing something about Wajakoya. People have made t-shirts online that they don't wear physically. People have made a lot of stuff about Wajakoya. The problem is that Kenyans have a way of raising you to the sky and then dropping you like a bomb, and you wonder, thought I had 5 million votes online.
And you think they're going to do that?
Size got 22,000. I can promise you they will do that. Because Kenyans vote with their emotions. It's never about interest. But for there are few people who have interest in what he has promised us, legalized bangi. So those who have interest in that for sure will vote for him, because that's an interest. Because people vote about interest. So I think Wajakoya has given us the comic relief that we need in this election. He has made it an interesting study. He has become popular, which is a good thing for him. And I think that's as far as it goes. After the elections, people will be just talking about Wajakoya. But as you see, if you want to know about interest, there are people who have done parties like t-shirts for Azimio and printed them and worn them. And another for some yellow party with some wheelbarrow. I don't remember what it's called. But they've done those t-shirts and they've worn them. Your party, that one. But Wajakoya, people have just done his t-shirts online and never worn them. So this is where we are. So, but now to the people of Waithaka, I want to thank you. I'm happy to have an opportunity to have been the candidate for Jubilee. And I can assure you, this is a good time. It's time for sober leadership. The Nairobi County controls a lot of money. It controls a lot of resources. There's a lot that goes in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of everything that could be Nairobi. And for sure, for the first time, let us give this opportunity to sober leadership. Let us give this opportunity to people who have a degree, because it brings something to the table. It's an addition you bring. Na tafadhali wa Kenya, muache kuchukia wale watu wamesoma, hawana ubaya. What happens is that education is a plus. It's never a minus. If someone has studied pharmacy, they bring something to the table. That if someone has done medicine, it's something they are bringing to the table. So muache kusema wale watu wamesoma ni wabaya, si wabaya. There's something new they bring that would ordinarily not have been attained by someone who did not have it. So nawaomba kura zenyu na nawashukuru, and I am happy to be on TV47 every other morning. Just call me every other morning. I'll come. I would love to be here, but I know you have many guests that you need to invite.
That's true.
So thank you, thank you,
we cannot miss at least once a week because, well, the space is here, and I think it's for great minds to speak to the people of Kenya. And for that reason, Santi Sana, your analogy, perhaps they should stop hating those women who wear makeup, Because after all, it's just an enhancement, right? I knew you'd want to counter that. Yes.
No, I do not want to counter that.
But you top up with makeup and you look much prettier.
What I would like to say, I mean, if something makes you happy, really, please do it.
Please do it. Thank you.
If it makes you happy, do it. It's not on my face, it's on your face. Why should it hurt me? So I should appreciate it. If it's on your face, ni yako.
Asante.
Bora ujanipaka mimi, I mean, it's fine.
That's good.
Yeah.